Everybody, thanks for coming. It's a new year, it's 2026, so happy new year. And we're starting off our series of 10 again, and we're going to be looking at portraits this year, or this session. What we're going to do is going to start with some drawing as usual. So I'll take you through a little bit about the proportions of the face and how to draw those, because it helps have that little bit of understanding about how the face is proportioned and everything, so we can get a little bit more accuracy. And I've got an exercise for everybody to work on to help you sort of get your head around that, and to do a little bit of shading as well. Now, one of the little ideas that I had, and it's just a small one at the moment, is that we will draw people that are wearing hats. So you'll see in a moment that when I show some of these pictures, that they're all a little bit different. Some people from different places in the world wearing different hats, and all the images are in black and white as well, so it really helps you to look at those tones and shadows. And I suggest as well that you use like a grid to draw things out, so I'm going to take you through that too, and then we can crack on. Yeah, all right. So we'll go over to the art wall straight away. All right, so these are some of the images that I have been inspired by for today's lesson, and they all use, well, they don't all use very different techniques, but they're kind of like loosening up the way that they draw a little bit and things. So if I just grab one of them, we can have a closer look. And I really love the mark making on some of these as well. So we've got this lovely one here where lots of hatching lines have been used, and then there's much more of a density of the lines where the shadows are, but they're built up really gradually so that you can start to get the form and the shape of the portrait. So that's one little bit of inspiration that we could use on one of the images that we draw. And another one just above that is this lovely one of a man hugging his dog, just here, and this is all done with scribbles. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of choice about which kind of technique you want to try, and if you're like some of us, you might want to try everything, which is absolutely fine, of course. And then let's have a look at this Rembrandty one over here. So again, you can see, look, the beautiful hatching is actually directional as well, so it kind of follows the contours of the face, and you can see it there particularly on the hat. It actually happens to be the only one with a hat, but we're going to look at some photos anyway in a few minutes as well. All right, so yeah, you can see how the lines are built up, and it actually helps you to think, because you're going to put these lines down, you want the lines to go in the direction of the contours of the face as well. Okay, so let's just pinch that away there, and now go on then, we'll have a look at the other one too. This one has got a little bit more colour on and some highlights which actually add lots of movement, but also add depth in there. So you can see that the white pen marks, or white white pen marks are more than likely the thing that's been used over the top of there. And I think there's just, actually looking at this now, this close up, you can see there might be some washes of watercolour on there, and I'm hoping that we can combine some of our drawings with a bit of watercolour and skin colour, obviously a little bit later as well. But these lovely flowing marks and everything are really fun to explore and experiment with as well. So we're going to do a little bit of that. I'll just put him back over there. And now I've got an exercise for everybody to have a look at, to do with drawing the proportions of the head, and I've got an interesting thing to say about this as well. So here's the worksheet. Now what I'm going to do is, because I don't think I've already sent this to you, I'm going to send it to you now in the chat on the Zoom. So you should be able to see that if you click on chat at the bottom. you will see I've sent you two worksheets, and there's a little arrow just above each one, which is the download button. And you can, if you want to, if you've got the you know, the resources, you can print it off tonight as well. But here you can see, if I get in a, if I just make that a little bit bigger, if I can, head proportions, there she is, right. So now the interesting thing about this one is this diagram here on the right hand side is a diagram you will find if you search for proportions of the head on the internet, but it's always really small and kind of a bit unusable in a way, really. So I used the AI to make it into a much better quality image, and then I thought, well, why don't I turn it into a photograph? So the girl, the photograph on the left there, is actually made using AI as well, and I asked it to put some light coming in from the side as well. So we've got an image which matches the proportions of the diagram on the right, which is really useful for us. So we can use that to help us do some shading and have a closer look at the proportions of the head and so forth. So let me just get in even closer, because I wrote on here as well. Now, just to sort of point out a few little things, just so that you're aware, if you haven't seen this before, the eye line here is, and there's lots of ways of drawing the proportions of the head, but the eye line is drawn in the center of the head, from where the top of the scalp is right down to the chin. If we divide those into two, on this diagram at least, the eyes are right in the center there, and you've got a vertical line going through the middle. And then if we divide the chin and the distance to the middle of the eyes there, then we've got the nose. And then if we divide that again, we've got more or less the bottom of the lip. And so you can see how the proportions of the head's starting to work. One thing as well that people often ask is, what's the distance between the eyes here? So on here you can see that I've got some lines, vertical lines, from just near the tear ducts, and you can see in between the eyes there is the distance of approximately another eye. So you've got 3 eye spaces there, and then the sides of it is a little, either side of the eyes there is a little bit less. Okay, now some other interesting things are, if you go straight down from the tear ducts, more or less, this isn't quite accurate as far as what I'm saying goes, but you get the nostrils, and then if you just go on the inside of the tear ducts, you'll get the corners of the mouth as well, more or less. So you can see how things are kind of measured. We've also got the eye line meets just around the top of the head, and the nose line just underneath the ears. So these things are just useful to know, because I have seen over the years, I've seen people put the eyes too far up, or on the forehead literally, because perhaps in the mind we imagine that there's not as much above the eyes as there is, in other words, the cranium or the brain and so forth. So what we can do is we can draw this out, or we can use a worksheet to do some shading from it today. If that's not possible for some people, then we can get straight onto the drawing. Okay, right, so I'm going to pinch that away down there, and if you've been in the class before, which most of you have, then you'll know about this, which is this grid just here. And you'll see that I've not just divided it into these rectangles, but I've also put lines through the corners to make these kind of 4 crosses in there, which helps to divide each rectangle further and give you more reference points for drawing your portrait. All right, okay, So we can come back to that if we need to, but I'm just going to switch that one off, and I'm going to show you some of the portraits that I've got. I've got loads more, but these are some of the hat portraits that I've chosen for us to have a look at. If you've got your own, brilliant, please use it. But I've chosen a number of portraits in here. I wonder if anyone guessed who the portrait was in the email. I'll ask you in a few minutes. So I put a portrait in there, which is quite interesting. I've got another one here that I've drawn out for you to have a look at as well. But you've got all these beautiful portraits. Some of them are from different parts of the world. And my favourite actually is this fellow down the bottom with his top hat. I'm not going to be able to find now, of course. Well, you can see him anyway, can't you? But I love that top hat as well. All right, so over to the desk. All right, brilliant. Okay, so on here, the basic task here is that you get the chance to have a go at doing a bit of shading just to get your head around the subject. So I'm going to come in a little bit closer. I hope you can all see that because it's quite faint. Now, I did start shading in here quite dark, but one way that you can really help yourself to refine your shading is by gradually building the shading up rather than going straight in and really dark. So this is what I recommend you do, is literally just gently stroke in some shadow so that you're starting to get an idea of where the shadows are going to be, and I'll show you this on another version in a few minutes as well. So gently putting in your shadow so you can start to see the 3D shape or form of your person start to reveal itself. And the reason for doing this is, and not going dark straight away, is that you can, it gets you looking at the subject from a very early point rather than shading in really dark straight away and then thinking, ah, I've overdone that, or that's not in the right place. This gives you a chance to sort of look and think, oh, I need to change things a little bit. So this is what I thought we would do to start with. And because we're working across these diagrams here, we're also reminding ourselves of the proportions and stuff as well. I always love to do the eyes quite early on because it brings the whole thing to life quite quickly as well. Okay, so and then once you've got a little bit of shadow in that you're happy with, you can start working in a little bit smaller with it as well, you know, smaller lines and so forth. So as a starting point, this is great practice. And you can see she's already starting to come forward a little bit. Not quite as dark as I'd like it to be there. Right, okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, now if you can't print that off straight away, then you can get straight on with doing our grids and things like that. So I'll show you how to draw the grid again. So I'll do it on this piece of paper. The quickest way with your photograph is to literally, I've got one here, is to literally fold it. Just bring it out. Is literally to fold it. I'll come out a little bit. There we go. Fold it into quarters. You've probably seen me doing this a few times. It's good to have a reminder. So fold it like that, and you've kind of got a grid without having to do too much measuring. And then you can, I'll do it on the back so you can see it a bit better on this one. So you can literally draw over the folds. So if you've already got your photograph ready, you could start doing that while I'm yabbering away here, if you want to. Whoop. There we go. And then of course you can divide it very quickly by doing the diagonals through there, like that. I won't do all of them. And then once you've got that, you can cut this out. Let's get some scissors. I had some scissors here somewhere. There we go. All right, so yeah, you can cut this out and use the edges of it. Just use this actually. And use the edges of your grid that you've got here on a piece of paper as well. So you'll have the grid on the photo and you'll have it on your piece of paper as well. All right, now once you've got that, of course, you can then start to draw out your portrait. So here's my photo. Now, does anyone know who this is? Anyone? This is a photograph of Cézanne. Did anyone get who it was on the email?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, correct. Yeah, so I mean, you come across these things all the time now. People have done these, got the portraits, paintings, drawings, whatever, and converted them into photographs, which I think is brilliant, you know, to actually see a photo like that. So a lot of you know what I'm going to say now, but what you can do is you can fold your photo once you've got your grid on it and have a look to see which section you're going to work on. And you can line it up like this. This is a little cheap, like that. And then you follow through the grid to draw the shapes on, like that. Now, for a complex image which has got the hat and the coat and everything, this is brilliant, and I would definitely use this, particularly if I was doing a larger painting and I wanted the, you know, the accuracy in there. So it's a great way to get cracking with it really. Just bring that round there. So, and you can see I'm already starting to get this lovely hat that he's got in. I don't know what sort of hat this is. It's a good one. Okay, so as you can see, I've started to get the outline of that hat, which is what I've done over here. Okay, so this is what we're aiming for today, is an outline of your portrait. Now, what I've also done is I've made I made this drawing earlier of this man with the dog, like that. And I've taken a few of the techniques that I've just shown you and had a go at doing them. So we've got this one, which has this lovely scribbly technique in it. An artist that does this is called Vince Lowe. It's brilliant to look at. But this is really launching straight into biro, which I don't really want to do, but you can see here how the scribbles have been used to draw this lovely fellow cuddling his dog. You could do it in pencil actually, so I'll do a little bit in pencil. So with a pen you can get different shades obviously, but you can do it with a pencil. You just might have to sharpen it a little bit, but it's a lovely technique because what you can do with this is you can make this kind of very soft effect on the drawing, but you can also make it kind of draw the eye into the important bits of the image, which in this case are the dog and the man hugging here. So again, you can start very lightly with your scribbles. So it's really loose. And again, like I said a few times now, you can do it nice and lightly and then build in a little bit more heavy. So that's one technique we can try. So I'd like you to choose which one you fancy doing. When you get to it. And the other thing I really love about this artwork is that we've got these very dense scribbles in the middle, and then as it goes out they become much more loose and free, don't they? So it really brings you into the center of the image as well. All right, so that's one. The next one is the same picture, but I was looking a little bit more closely at this blue drawing. We're getting a bit closer again. So you can see here this one and this one, there's lots of lines that overlap and cross each other and build up the tone. So I've started to do that with this one here, of this man. And I've got another one of these that I'll show you as well. So you've got a few things to experiment with once you get to that stage. But take your time getting that outline first of all, because as soon as you've got those outlines, you can feel confident that you've got things as close as you can get them, and you can start to enjoy the process of trying out the technique. So it's breaking down that whole process into outlines, detail and proportion, and then we add the texture and the tone to give it form. So I'm using these lines as well to try and show a little bit of the contouring of the face as well. And if you keep going patiently, you'll start to see the whole picture reveal itself. Alright, so there's one that I was working on today and a bit yesterday, which is a bit bigger. So as you start to sort of sculpt it, you can then start to reduce your marks down and make them a bit darker. So I'll just do a little bit more, and then if anyone's got any questions. And you can keep them, I mean this photo here is quite harsh in a way, these edges and things, but you can also, you know, if you want it to feel softer, you can let the marks overlap each other a little bit. And the other thing you can do is you can use your finger on the photo to remind yourself of where you're looking, or just to give you a point to easily go back and see where you were. Okay, and finally I'll show you this one. This is one I started yesterday of one of the photos on the website or on the drive. So this is using the similar technique to what I was using before, but I've obviously got a little slightly further with it. And you can see here what I mean about going a bit lighter to begin with. So this is all hatched marks here, and then I gradually worked into it and made areas darker. And some of a lot of the lines, look, you can see, are also going in the direction. So we can see this cheek comes around and goes off that way, a little bit flatter. So I'm bringing the lines up and around like that to get that shape, and then I can work in heavier to give it the crease or the fold in the skin where it's needed. Alright, okay, so I'll perhaps do a little bit more on that, but is there anything that anybody wants to ask about what we're doing? So a few people asked about the names of some of the artists. I'll publish those on the website in due course. But for the rest of this lesson, I spend the time working on this portrait. So as I mentioned before, what I've done here is I've gradually built up the image. Before I started, I got the outlines of everything. I didn't use a grid for this particular picture. What I used is a just by sight, starting around near the glasses and the nose, but I also just sketch out very, very loosely and lightly the whole of the image. Measuring out the larger distances, say the distance between the lenses on the glasses, or the distance from each side of the glasses to from the center there to the side of the head, but do that very loosely, allowing myself to make plenty of errors, and then to correct those errors before I then commit, like I am more so now, to drawing out or adding deeper shadows and lines to the image. So once that outline is there, and I'm reasonably happy with it, because I can still make some changes as I'm going along, and in fact the whole thing is a process of refinement and looking deeper at the individual shapes. And because you're always learning about whatever you're drawing, doesn't matter what it is or how experienced you are, you're still always learning about what is there in front of you, such as each person being a different person and you needing to learn about the contours of their face and so forth. So drawing freehand like this allows the movement of the hand to come through in the lines on the paper a little bit more, and adds a little bit more energy. Sometimes using the grid can feel a little bit stiff in a drawing, but it's a fantastic way to get those accurate bits of accuracy and outlines quite early on, so that you can move forward with what we're doing now, which is the shading. So as I mentioned as well, I've taken the inspiration from the blue drawing that we saw earlier, and I've used that as a way of approaching the shading. And I did really enjoy doing this. It's a lot of fun. And I've added some lines around the outside just to sort of, it creates a little bit of movement again, and a bit of energy to the picture. a bit like the scribbles on the previous ones with the man with the dog. But also the artist previously used lots of hatched lines and then built on top of them, which is more or less what I've been doing with this. So it's a little bit closer now. I'm just kind of working into some of those details a little bit more. I've still not shaded as dark as I perhaps will go with this. So I'm building up some of the dark areas, but I've not gone all the way in with the shadows. In fact, the glasses is probably just under the nose is probably obviously the bit that I've worked into the most so far. But once you get to this stage and you're kind of happy with where everything goes and you've got some sort of sense of form in the image, then it starts to really be enjoyable, because you can relax and enjoy that part of the process. Or this is at least what I find. Looking for the contrast between the dark and the light areas is really important. Particularly when you've got areas which fold down on the face or contour around very sharply, you need to have more contrast there. And the artist that we looked at previously uses a lot of that high contrast, the blue drawing, the high contrast shading on his work, which gives a really strong sense of a much brighter light. There's a reason I chose these images, because they're high contrast. I think the fella's ear needed to be perhaps a bit wider on the back there. Just looking at his ears now, they're a bit wider than perhaps I've got them in there. That's okay, I can change that later. So as I'm talking to you now, I'm looking at the whole thing at a much smaller scale than I looked at previously. This is the dog that I drew on Tuesday at another class. So if you take your time, you'll find that there's lots of opportunities to build in more texture if you're carefully layering your tones and shadows. Some people will work into their shadows very heavily and then leave the lighter areas quite light, which adds a different sort of high contrast, almost pop art sort of effect to the drawing that they would have been making. So here we've got in between those dark and light areas, we've got some mid-tones here, although it is still quite contrasty, and there is a lot more work to do on this drawing. So just here I'm filling in very gently some of the tones and shadows which I can see on his scarf and jacket and so forth. You can't see the bottom because of the light. So it's almost like I did with the face, mapping out those shapes in order to work out where the form and the shape of the image is going to be. And also the contour, or how the scarf goes round and so forth. Yeah, I really enjoyed drawing this picture. There's a lot more I could do, but why don't you have a go as well? So as I mentioned earlier, you'll need to get those outlines in, so you've got a kind of a detailed map of where all the shape's going to go, and then you can start applying in all of those darker shadows and so forth. So I hope you've enjoyed today, and please like and subscribe and all those sorts of things, and leave a comment as well, and I'll see you next week for the next lesson. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Bye.